It's October 14th, 2012. A man stands on a tiny ledge outside a capsule, 24 miles above the New Mexico desert. He can see the curve of the earth. The sky above him is black. 8 million people are watching live, holding their breath. Then Felix Baumgartner salutes the camera and steps off into nothing. He falls for 4 minutes and 19 seconds. He breaks the sound barrier with his body. No vehicle, no engine, just a man and gravity. It is one of the most watched live events in human history, and it was not produced by a television network or a space agency or a government. It was produced by a company that sells a sugary drink in a small silver can. The most expensive thing Red Bull ever made was not the drink, it was the story around it. Here's the thing most people get wrong about Red Bull. They think it's a drink company that happens to do wild marketing. It's the opposite. Red Bull is a marketing machine that happens to sell a drink. The liquid inside the can costs only a few cents to make. It tastes by most accounts strange. And yet for decades people have paid a markup of more than 1,000% for it. Not because of what's in the can, but because of what the can represents. The whole empire traces back to one quiet decision made by a Thai pharmacist who never wanted fame, and one Austrian salesman with a bad case of jet lag. If you're into stories about how impossible businesses actually got built, subscribe. We dig into one every few days. Because to understand how a can of syrup conquered the world, you have to go back to a small factory in Bangkok, and a drink made for men nobody was paying attention to. Chaleo Yoovidhya was born poor. The son of Chinese immigrants who raised ducks and sold fruit in central Thailand, he never finished secondary school. What he had instead was an instinct for chemistry. In the 1960s, he started a small pharmaceutical company in Bangkok, mixing and selling antibiotics. It was steady, unglamorous work, but Chaleo noticed something on the roads around him. Thailand was modernizing fast. Truck drivers hauled cargo across the country on punishing overnight routes. Factory laborers worked double shifts. Construction crews baked in the sun. These men were exhausted and they were invisible to the big consumer brands who chased wealthier customers in the cities. Chaleo looked at the working men everyone else ignored and saw a market. In 1976, Chaleo released his answer. He called it Krating Daeng, Thai for red gaur, a powerful wild ox native to Southeast Asia. He put 2 charging bulls on the label, locked horns against a yellow sun. The drink was a syrupy, non-carbonated tonic, loaded with caffeine, sugar, and an amino acid called taurine. It was sweet, it was cheap, and it did exactly one job. It kept tired men awake and moving. He priced it for the working class, sold it in small glass bottles, and pushed it through the places those men actually went. Roadside stalls, gas stations, factory canteens. Krating Daeng was never meant to be cool. It was meant to be useful. And in Thailand, it worked. Drivers swore by it. The 2 Red Bulls became a familiar sight across the country. Chaleo had built a solid, profitable business serving the men nobody else served. That should have been the end of the story. A regional tonic, successful at home, unknown everywhere else. Enter Dietrich Mateschitz. In the early 1980s, Mateschitz was an Austrian marketing executive in his late 30s, selling toothpaste and cosmetics across Asia. He was successful, well-paid, and quietly restless. On a business trip to Bangkok in 1982, he checked into a hotel jet-lagged and foggy, and a colleague suggested a local remedy for the exhaustion. It was Chaleo's Tonic. Mateschitz drank it, and his jet lag lifted. But the businessman in him noticed something far more valuable than the caffeine. He read a trade report showing that the top-selling tax-paying company in Japan that year was not a car maker or an electronics giant. It was a company that sold energy tonics. Mateschitz did the math in his head. A drink that cured fatigue in a world that was getting more tired and more frantic every year. He flew home convinced he had just stumbled onto a fortune hiding in a glass bottle. The only problem, nobody outside Asia had ever heard of it. Mateschitz didn't try to steal the idea. He went to the source. He approached Chaleo with a proposal. Let me take this drink to the West. The 2 men, the cautious Thai pharmacist and the ambitious Austrian marketer, struck a deal that would make them both billionaires. Each invested $500,000. Each took a 49% stake in a new company. The remaining 2% went to Chaleo's son with an agreement that Mateschitz would run the operation. They named the new venture after a translation of the original drink, Krating Daeng, Red Bull. But Mateschitz understood that the Thai tonic could not simply be shipped to Europe as it was. Western tastes were different. Western buyers expected something else, so he changed it. He added carbonation, turning the flat syrup into a fizzy drink. He tweaked the formula, and then he made the decision that everyone around him thought was insane. He decided what it would cost. In 1997, Red Bull launched in Austria. Mateschitz priced a single small can higher than a bottle of Coca-Cola, sometimes much higher. To the beverage industry, this was madness. Cola was the benchmark, and you did not charge a premium for an unknown drink with a weird taste and a tiny can. Before launch, Mateschitz had commissioned a market research study to test the product. The results were brutal. Consumers hated the taste. They didn't understand the concept. The study concluded, in plain language, that the product would fail. Mateschitz read the report that said his entire idea was doomed, and he launched it anyway, because he had understood something the researchers had not. He wasn't selling a soft drink. He wasn't even really selling energy. The high price wasn't a mistake to be corrected. The high price was the message. A drink this expensive, this small, this strange, had to be for something special. Scarcity and cost weren't obstacles. They were the entire point. Red Bull's first years in Europe were slow, but Mateschitz refused to market it like a normal drink. There were no glossy ads of people sipping cans on a beach. Instead, he did the opposite of what every consumer brand did. He hired university students and gave them branded cars with giant cans mounted on the roof. He sent them to libraries during exams, to climbing gyms, to all-night parties, handing out free cans to exactly the people who needed to stay awake and alert. He targeted bartenders and DJs, students and athletes, the trendsetters, not the masses. And he did one more strange thing. He told his team to leave empty crushed cans lying around in the trendiest clubs and bars, so that people would think everyone cool was already drinking it. He wasn't buying attention. He was manufacturing the appearance of a movement. By the time most people heard of Red Bull, it already felt like a secret they'd discovered for themselves. Then came the slogan, "Red Bull gives you wings." 4 words that promised nothing about the drink and everything about the feeling. The campaign that carried it was just as unusual. Instead of slick footage of the product, Red Bull ran simple, crudely drawn cartoons. Little hand-animated jokes that ended with someone sprouting wings. They were cheap to make and almost defiantly low budget. And that was deliberate. The cartoons never tried to convince you the drink tasted good, because Mateschitz knew it didn't matter. He had grasped a deeper truth about why people buy things. Nobody needed another beverage. What people wanted was energy, edge, the sense that they could do more. So Red Bull stopped selling a liquid and started selling a promise. That with this can in your hand, you were the kind of person who pushed limits. The product was almost beside the point. The brand was the product. With the brand in place, Mateschitz made his boldest move. Most companies pay to put their logo beside someone else's event. Red Bull decided to own the events outright. It didn't sponsor a cliff diving competition. It created one. It didn't buy ad space at an air race. It built an entire air racing championship from scratch. Mountain biking, breakdancing, Formula One, surfing, skateboarding, motocross, wherever there was speed, danger, and youth, Red Bull planted its flag and made itself the host. The genius was that this content sold the lifestyle far better than any commercial could. A teenager watching a Red Bull cliff dive wasn't being sold a drink. He was being sold a world he wanted to belong to, and the can was the ticket in. Red Bull wasn't advertising next to adrenaline anymore. It owned adrenaline. And the more spectacular the stunt, the more the brand became synonymous with the very feeling its customers were chasing. At some point, the marketing stopped being marketing. Red Bull built its own media house, a full production company with photographers, film crews, editors, and a content network rivaling traditional broadcasters. It produced magazines, documentaries, music, and a torrent of online video, much of it barely mentioning the drink at all. Executives inside the company started saying something that sounded like a riddle. Red Bull is a media company that happens to sell a drink. And it was true. The strategy flipped the entire logic of advertising on its head. A normal company makes a product and then pays others to show it to people. Red Bull made the entertainment itself, kept the audience, and let the drink ride along for free. The content was so good that people sought it out, shared it, and paid attention, willingly. Mateschitz had built something most marketers only dream of, a brand people didn't tune out, a brand people tuned in for. Which brings us back to the edge of space. The Stratos jump in 2012 was the purest expression of everything Mateschitz believed. Red Bull spent an estimated $50 million over 5 years to send Felix Baumgartner higher than any human had ever gone in a balloon, and let him fall back to Earth faster than the speed of sound. It funded the science, the engineering, the safety teams, the years of testing, and then it broadcast the whole thing live to the world. When Baumgartner landed safely on his feet in the desert, more than 50 million people had watched across the internet and television. The footage was replayed for weeks. Every frame carried the logo. Measured as advertising, $50 million to reach hundreds of millions of people, again and again, was almost absurdly cheap. Red Bull hadn't bought a commercial during the big game, it had become the big game. A drink company had funded a man's leap from the stratosphere and turned it into the most valuable marketing stunt in history. Today, the scale is staggering. Red Bull sells more than 12 billion cans a year in over 170 countries. The company that started with a Thai trucker Tonic generates well over $10 billion in annual revenue. It owns Formula One racing teams that win world championships, football clubs across multiple continents, and a media arm watched by hundreds of millions. Dietrich Mateschitz became one of the richest men in Austria before his death in 2022. And Chaleo Yoovidhya, the quiet pharmacist who never sought the spotlight, died in 2012 as one of the wealthiest people in Asia, his family fortune built on the drink he invented for tired men on Thai highways. Two halves of one of the most unlikely partnerships in business history. Neither man could have built this empire alone. The pharmacist had the formula, the salesman had the story, and the story, it turned out, was worth 1,000 times more than the formula. But every empire has a shadow. The same formula that powered Red Bull's rise, heavy caffeine, heavy sugar, has drawn decades of scrutiny from doctors and regulators. Studies have linked high consumption of energy drinks to heart rhythm problems and raised blood pressure. Several countries have restricted or briefly banned the drink. Critics argue that the brand sells not just a beverage but a culture of risk, marketed hardest to the young. Red Bull has always pointed to research it says proves the drink is safe in normal amounts, and the debate continues to this day. There is a deeper irony here too. Chaleo built his original tonic to help exhausted working men survive brutal shifts, a functional, almost humble product. By the time it conquered the West, that same drink had been transformed into a symbol of leisure, thrill, and excess, sold at a luxury markup to people who were anything but desperate. The medicine for the poor had become a lifestyle for everyone else. So what did Red Bull actually build? Not a better drink. The liquid is, by the founder's own admission, almost the least important part. What they built was an idea that you can sell a feeling more reliably than you can sell a product, and that the story wrapped around an object can be worth 1,000 times the object itself. A Thai pharmacist mixed a tonic for men the world ignored. An Austrian salesman tasted it through a fog of jet lag and saw not a drink, but a stage. Between them, with the same liquid that cost a few cents, they convinced the planet to pay for wings. The next time you see a man fall from the edge of space, or a logo on a cliff diver's helmet, remember what you're really looking at. Not an advertisement for a beverage. The most expensive story ever told, sold one small silver can at a time. If you want more stories about how the impossible actually got built, subscribe. There's always another one worth telling.